But first, Prague, capital of the Czech Republic, is one of Europe's most picturesque and historic cities. After a tumultuous 20th century marked by war, invasion and suppression, a new era of freedom and stability has dawned. And with it, a chance for locals and outsiders to appreciate its heritage and charm. For 650 years, the King Charles Bridge has connected Prague over the Vltava River. To mark the occasion, the bridge was decorated with statues of legendary Prague personalities such as Brunplik, Magister Kelly, Gollum and the Black Knight. During the celebrations, spectators watched reenactments of some of their history's more grisly episodes. Festivities started at midnight, with people dressed up as clowns, magicians, knights and nobles, putting on performances which continued until the early morning. Given the city's volatile history, the bridge's longevity is remarkable, but locals believe there is a magical reason for its survival. Named after its founder, the Czech king and Roman Emperor Charles IV, the bridge was at the heart of the Roman Empire when it was founded in 1357. For almost 300 years, it was the only bridge to connect Prague across the Vltava River. On the site of the Charles Bridge, there once stood another stone bridge, the Judith Bridge, founded in around 1170. But this was destroyed by floods in 1342. King Charles IV then decided to replace the Judith Bridge and asked his astrologers for a magical date and hour to found a new one. The advice he received was to begin on the 9th of July, 1357 at 5:31 a.m, a date and time which is made up of only prime numbers and which is believed to have protected the bridge until this day. With the all-night party behind them, the important moment approached. It was time to give thanks. At 5:31, Prague Mayor Pavel Bem and Grand Master Jiří Kopiško from the Czech Red Cross Order marked the magical hour of the bridge founding by symbolically striking the bridge with a hammer. Here in this place, at the bottom of the bridge, close to the St. Clement Church, Charles IV founded this stone bridge. It is a place full of positive energy. I am glad that the celebrations went well. The Charles Bridge is a symbol of the beating heart of Prague. And I can say of our whole republic, maybe it is a dominant place of power for the whole of Europe. The bridge remains in a fairly good condition and is crossed by 30,000 people, mostly tourists, every day. But it is awaiting a major reconstruction, which starts very soon and is expected to take several years. The bridge was not the only Czech icon to celebrate an important birthday. At the Prague Zoo, Chilka became the world's oldest living Przewalski horse after she celebrated her 34th birthday with a bread and vegetable cake. Prague Zoo officials and guests toasted Chilka with champagne. Here is to Chilka. Let's wish her good health and breaking other records. The Przewalski are an endangered ancient breed of horse, and Prague Zoo is one of the foremost traditional wild horse breeders in Europe. The first Przewalski horse arrived at the zoo in 1923 from Germany, and its first offspring was born in 1933. In 1945, Prague Zoo became one of only 2 places where this rare and ancient breed of horse was kept in captivity. The zoo established a breeding program and helped increase the numbers of the endangered wild horse. Now, almost 70% of horses in the wild can trace their parentage back to Prague. With the help of various organisations, 11 of them were returned to freedom in nature reserves in Mongolia, Hungary and Ukraine. Cheers to Chilka's good health. Coming up, Westminster Abbey's secret past. For centuries, Westminster Abbey has been the heart of political and religious life in Britain. It was home to Parliament during the 14th century and has seen the coronation of every monarch with the exception of 2. The event you are seeing now was another historic event. the funeral of the Queen Mother in April 2002. For over 900 years, the Abbey has been the burial place of many kings, statesmen, soldiers and poets. It is Britain's highest national honour to be given a resting place at the Abbey. As the Queen Mother's coffin arrived at Westminster Abbey, millions around the UK observed a 2-minute silence. Royals, VIPs and ordinary members of the public converged on Westminster to pay their respects to the Queen Mother and witness the end of another chapter in Britain's royal history. 79 years earlier, the royal matriarch had walked down the same aisle as a royal bride. Now, like many before her, this was a farewell in an atmosphere of spectacular but solemn appreciation. The Abbey is the collegiate church of St Peter in the city of Westminster in central London. Several times it has been reconstructed from a church originally built by Edward the Confessor in the 10th century. After the Norman church was demolished and replaced over a 30-year period beginning in 1245, development was halted for over a century due to a disastrous fire in 1298 and then the 50-year scourge of the Black Plague. Now one of London's top tourist attractions can add the discovery of the oldest door in Britain to its history.
It's only just been confirmed that this door, which we knew was an old door and which was very, very well made, actually goes back to the time of our founder, Edward the Confessor, and that this door was made probably for the abbey that Edward built, and that it was been so well made that it's been in use for nearly 1,000 years.
English Heritage, a government agency responsible for historic buildings, spent 3 months and nearly £4,000 conducting tests. It found that the wood used to build the door came from a tree that was felled between 1032 and 1064. The Abbey authorities are thrilled that the discovery of the door coincides with celebrations commemorating the founder, Edward the Confessor. The son of Ethelred the Unready, Edward reigned for 24 years between 1042 and 1066. While there was already an abbey on the site of Westminster, Edward is credited with its development. The central nave was completed soon after his canonisation as a saint in 1161.
It brings the past to life because when you pass through the door, when you look at the door, you can think that people have gone backwards and forwards through that door for just about 1,000 years.
On her final journey, the Queen Mother was farewelled by a 2,000-strong congregation, headed by her daughter, Queen Elizabeth II, and then British Prime Minister Tony Blair and his wife Cherie. The congregation inside the Abbey was accompanied in their prayers and hymns by thousands of people outside. Many had queued since dawn to pay their last respects. The atmosphere in the Abbey itself is heightened by its unusually lofty ceiling, which is over 33 metres high. The length is also impressive. When including Henry VIII's chapel, it is over 165 metres long. There are few Gothic cathedrals to match Westminster Abbey for its grace and beauty. The 6-foot by 4-foot oak panelled door, well made as it is, may not at first glance appear to be the treasure that it has become. It has opened to kings, politicians and priests. Today it leads to a storeroom, but who knows what it will witness over the centuries to come. Tibet was once considered inaccessible, a mountain kingdom bisected by the Himalayas that was maybe even a part of heaven on earth, Shangri-La. But it seems with each passing month, Tibet is losing its remoteness and maybe some of its character, as tourists in search of spectacular scenery and spirituality flood the Tibetan capital, Lhasa. The Chinese government has put over $1.3 billion into developing the autonomous region, hoping to capitalise on the fascination with the former seat of the Dalai Lama and some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world. Chinese residents with a growing disposable income are happy to get away from their congested and dusty cities, and now the central government is making it easier for them to come. The state-owned Air China announced the opening of night flights linking Lhasa and Chengdu, the closest major city. and the ambitious Qinghai-Tibet Railway is in operation, stretching across the vast plateau and peaks that used to isolate Tibet from its neighbours and cutting the cost of travelling to the region. But Lhasa already seems filled to capacity with tourists. At the Zhoukang Temple, the spiritual centre of Tibet, Chinese tour groups seem to outnumber the worshipping Tibetan pilgrims. I don't know what they are thinking. They are probably already used to the number of tourists. There is probably some disturbance, but it has been so many years, I'm sure they are used to it by now. The influx of visitors has raised concerns with overseas Tibetan activists, worried that government officials are turning the city into a theme park for the sake of making money.
This is a political matter. It's very difficult to tell me. But no doubt nowadays tourism is very flooding whole Lhasa, which is very good. I would say that tourism is one of the important source of economy for them. So far the foreign currency is concerned, especially for Lhasa.
Officials seem to be playing down the scale of tourism, claiming that only 2 to 3% of Lhasa's total GDP for 2003 was brought in by tourism, but that figure has since increased tenfold. Tourism in Lhasa brought $130 million into the underdeveloped city last year. The train services shuttle over 6,000 people in and out of the remote city every day during peak seasons, and the number of tourists in the first half of this year nearly doubled to more than 3 million. Since the Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1950, the mountain kingdom has undergone the most turbulent change in its 5,000-year history. The 14th Dalai Lama has been in exile since a failed uprising in 1959. Hundreds of monasteries were desecrated or destroyed. Western visitors, drawn to the Himalayan region by sympathy for the cause of the Tibetan Buddhist population, admit there is a problem.
There should be some places where tourists are allowed to go, but there should be also protection for the monks and even for real pilgrims to go and not, which are not allowed for tourists, I think. And on the other hand, I think that it's very important for people to come to Tibet and to see what's happening, and also to be critical about what's happening here. Because I think also that we don't get the right information all the time.
Most of the tourists are from mainland China. Nowadays, more foreigners are also heading towards the cultural hotspot after the local government made it easier for them to enter the region. China, which expects the number of tourists visiting Tibet to reach 6 million in 2010, is building a 4th airport at Nagari in the west, which will be the world's highest airport. But despite the influx of tourists and Han Chinese migrant influx, Tibetan people are receiving less than their share of new jobs and income. Coming up, the world's most beautiful eggs. Landmarks aren't always buildings or natural wonders. The world of art is also a regular contributor. Fabergé eggs were originally the creation of Russian jeweller Carl Fabergé, who took over his father's St. Petersburg goldsmith business in 1870. In 1885, he was appointed the supplier to the court of His Imperial Majesty, the Tsar of Russia. The Charlottenburg Palace in Berlin recently held an exhibition of some of Carl's finest work for the Russian royal family and gave an insight into the opulent world of Russia's last Tsar. Every year on Easter, court artist Carl Fabergé and his firm produced an egg for the Russian Emperor and Empress. Presenting eggs at Easter was a widespread tradition in Russia. Everyone from the Tsar to the common man shared the season's greetings with their friends and kin at Easter by way of one of the oldest symbols of Christ's resurrection, the egg. Most eggs were pure gold and encrusted with gems of all types, although diamonds abounded. But Fabergé also used enamel for colour, crystal, nephrite, and even incorporated photography. However, there is an element of tragedy behind the beauty in this exhibition. The Tsar and his family were overthrown in the Russian Workers' Revolt of October 1917. Many Russian royals, including the Tsar, his wife and children, were killed. Others were imprisoned or exiled. Only 11 of the approximately 56 eggs remained in Russia.
Also ich glaube, es sind verschiedene Dinge. Zum einen ist es das Gefühl,
I believe the history of these eggs makes this exhibition so special. These eggs were made for the Russian Tsars and the Russian Tsar family.
Jedes Ei hat seine eigene Geschichte.
Each egg has its own history, but of course it is also the beauty of each individual egg, the miniature technique, the enamel, the eggs decorated with gold and diamonds. The beauty and the history of these eggs is what makes this collection so interesting and so precious. One of the exhibition's highlights is the 1897 coronation egg, estimated to be worth $24 million. Coronation was given by Tsar Nicholas II to his wife, Empress Alexandra. Inside the egg is a tiny replica of Alexandra's royal coach in gold, platinum and enamel. This exhibition was curated by the Link of Times Cultural and Historical Foundation. Its member aim is to retrieve Russian cultural treasures following the October Revolution. I admire the whole exhibition. It's just great, beautifully organised and displayed. It's history. You can't put a value to it and say it costs so and so much. It's our European history. Personally, I think it's a miracle. Fabergé's gifts were sometimes intensely personal. One of the most poignant pieces on display is the Lilies of the Valley egg made in 1898. Shown here, the Empress's husband with their two daughters, Olga and Tatiana. It is such great luck for me to see this exhibition in Berlin, because Fabergé is of great significance to the Russian people. Many thanks to Victor Vekselberg, who has put together the collection and who has given people the opportunity to see such an exhibition. Carl Fabergé himself escaped revolutionary Russia to Switzerland. His studio of 300 craftsmen was lost and his technology destroyed. The famed Russian artist died in 1918. His work lives on. The Isle of Man, a small island in the Irish Sea between Britain and Ireland, has long managed to maintain its distinctive identity despite the presence of its larger neighbours. The island measures a little over 20 kilometres at its longest point and is around 10 kilometres wide. It is windswept and often overcast and has a population of just over 80,000. While the British monarch is head of state, it is not part of the United Kingdom nor the European Union. It may not seem to be the sort of place that would lure big-budget film productions, but that's just what has been happening.
We're very reliant on the finance sector, so the establishment of the Film Commission back in '95 was really to take a first step into diversification for the economy, really.
The island has had a colourful and at times bloody past. After their 8th century settlement, the Manx were at times ruled by the Vikings and Normans before the Scots and then English took control in the Middle Ages. They are now a self-governing dependency. The Isle of Man government has been the driving force behind the film industry push.
In the last 7 years, we've invested around about £35 million in something like 39 projects. For the next couple of years, we're looking to go to bigger budget films, bigger budget, more commercial films. And we've announced in our recent budget in the Isle of Man that a media development fund is being set up. And that fund is likely to generate something of, in the order of £125 million.
If the production level is maintained, the Isle of Man, best known for kipper smoking and cats without tails, is set to become one of the most important players in the British film industry, boosting its tourist trade by millions and transforming the Manx economy. Traffic wardens have reinvented themselves as location scouts. Sailors are becoming production runners. Kennel owners are launching careers as snake handlers. Pensioners are swapping the gardening for regular work as film extras, playing corpses and clergy, or passengers aboard Thomas the Tank Engine. It's unclear whether their Celtic ancestors would approve. Mysticism is still a presence on the island, as it is throughout the Southern Isles. In Manx mythology, the island was ruled by a Celtic sea god who drew a misty cloak around the island when danger threatened. But those who are part of the film boom on the small island are not in the fog. It remains one of the few European film centres in constant production.
We are now in a 3-year deal with the Isle of Man, officially developing projects that are designed to shoot a half or more on the island.
The result is one of the few government-run film industries that are running a profit. Despite the presence of stars such as Christina Ricci, the locals continue to go about their business.
They're not fazed by celebrity. They left her alone, and it's a very film-friendly environment for those reasons. Of course, they've got a great array of locations. There's now a proper sound stage, so you can easily film your interiors there as well.
We are probably the only government in the world who are investing in film in a way that's not tax-driven or is not subsidy-driven. What we do is we just put direct investment into the budget, and we expect to get that investment back. So when the film's out there selling, we're getting a slice of that money back for the Isle of Man. But in addition, and much more importantly, it generates a massive amount of local spend into the local economy. And so our hotels, they now have a winter and an autumn trade from film. Our taxi drivers have a winter and an autumn trade. We sell more meat, we sell more milk, we sell more beer, but we don't have to build the prisons, the hospitals and the roads to cope with the demand. So it's a great economic model, and it pays for itself a number of times over with the exchequer benefit that's generated.
According to an old Isle of Man saying, from the summit of one of the island's few hills, you can see 6 kingdoms, those of Man, Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales and heaven. It's the stuff dreams are made of.